What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Wednesday, November 8th, 2023, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now, it is 12:12 p.m. Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Yemen. So, apparently, the Yemen military shot down a U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone. So this was confirmed by the spokesman for the Yemeni armed forces on Twitter this morning, just about an hour ago. And he tweeted here, statement issued by the Yemeni armed forces: in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, with the help of God Almighty, our air defenses were able to shoot down an American MQ-9 aircraft while it was carrying out hostile monitoring and spying activities in the airspace of Yemeni territorial waters and within the framework of American military support for the Israeli entity. So this is crazy, guys. And what is Biden going to do about it? Okay. We also have some concerning news coming in that apparently the total number of American troops who have suffered injuries over the last month as a result of attacks by Iranian backed militias on U.S. bases in Iraq has now risen to at least 46, with two of the soldiers having to be airlifted to Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany for observation related to a head injury following one of the attacks. This was confirmed by the Department of Defense. Okay. So we're already a month into this war. Israel is already entering the center of Gaza City. This was confirmed yesterday by the Israeli defense minister and some of the spokesmen for the Israeli military. So Israel is closing in. They're tightening the noose around Gaza City and they're starting to make their way to the middle. And this is very concerning, guys. Okay, the Yemeni armed forces literally shooting down one of our drones and 46 American troops injured, with two of them being airlifted to a medical center in Germany for head injuries. And for all we know, that number could be three times as high. Okay. It could be 150 soldiers injured. We just don't know the true number. Okay. And is the Biden administration going to take action, or are they just going to sit around and let this happen? We have the assets in the region. We have two carrier strike groups in the region. And we also have this bad boy right off the coast of Iran. We have an Ohio class sub that arrived in the Central Command area of responsibility 3 days ago. This was confirmed by U.S. Central Command. Okay, this is an Ohio class submarine. This is one of the U.S. Nuclear armed submarines. Probably this one has 154 Tomahawk missiles with W-80 nuclear warheads, which have a blast yield of 150 kilotons. Okay, so this is the type of equipment you would need if you wanted to attack Iran and decapitate their military, decapitate their nuclear program. This is exactly the kind of firepower you would need. This submarine alone could completely devastate the entire Iranian military with just one volley of all of its missiles. Okay. So things are escalating, guys. Okay. And are we going to see the U.S. or Israel strike Yemen now? It's very possible. Okay. Yemen is going to continue to fire missiles at Israel, and Hezbollah is going to do the same thing. So things are continuing to escalate, guys. The former Prime Minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett, in an interview with Fox News, said that Iran is the head of the octopus whose arms are Hamas and Hezbollah. We also need to hit Tehran in the end. Okay, I'll repeat that again. We also need to hit Tehran in the end. Okay, that's what the former Prime Minister of Israel said, basically saying Israel should go after Iran eventually because Iran is responsible for all these attacks. And the Islamic resistance in Iraq released a statement threatening U.S. embassies in the Middle East. It stated the following: the American evil embassy is the source of terrorism in our region. All political solutions were useless. We are only left with military operations against U.S. embassies and bases. All right, so these Iranian militias in Iraq and Syria, they're going to go after the embassies now, too. Okay, they've been going after the bases, and so far the embassies have been spared. But it looks like now they're going to start going after embassies. And tomorrow, the Department of Defense issued an advisory for tomorrow saying that there's going to be pro Palestinian protests across the country, and they're specifically going to be protesting outside US defense contractor headquarters. So things are continuing to spiral out of control. The UK counterterrorism police are warning that there could be an increased risk of attacks in the UK because of the Israel Gaza conflict. Reports to the anti-terror hotline in the UK between the 7th of October and the 25th of October doubled compared to the same period last year. The number of reports containing information classed as significant also rose by nearly 4 times. UK police say the Israel Gaza conflict could have an energizing effect on those considering attacks. All right, so the anti terror hotline in the UK is now getting blown up, and it looks like there could be some terrorist attacks in the UK in the near future. And by the way, here in the US, we're not safe. Okay, there's probably thousands, if not millions, of sleeper agents of all kinds in this country, and they're pouring in through the southern border right now as we speak. Okay. A lot of Border Patrol agents have been reporting that they've been seeing suspicious persons coming in from the Middle East, from the Mexican border. So be prepared, guys. Carry your self defense tool at all times. Be aware of your surroundings. Know where the exits are everywhere you go. Know where cover and concealment is. Get in the habit of identifying cover and concealment anytime you're out in public. If you're at a shopping mall, if you're at a store, even at your job, think about cover and concealment. What would I do if some crazy guy came in with a firearm and started shooting at me? Where would I take cover? Okay, cover's anything that could stop bullets. It has to be something solid. For an AR-15 bullet, you need a pretty thick material, pretty dense material, like a sheet of plywood is not going to do anything, or drywall. Okay, you need something solid like a refrigerator or a concrete wall. The U.S. Army Director of Acquisition and Logistics, Douglas R. Burch, stated that two Iron Dome air defense batteries owned by the U.S. and stationed in Anderson Air Force Base in Guam and Lewis McChord in Washington are indeed in the process of being transferred to Israel. The batteries, alongside hundreds of American air defense missiles in U.S. stockpiles, will be leased to the Israeli Defense Force for an initial term of 11 months, with possible extensions depending on the situation in the region. A majority of the missiles have already arrived in Israel, with the batteries expected to arrive in the coming weeks. Once delivered, these batteries will reinforce the 10 batteries already operated by the IDF across Israel, providing more security for rockets launched from Gaza or by groups in the region. Okay, so they're going to have 12 batteries. They already have 10. We're going to lease them 2 more Iron Dome batteries. Okay, so that's pretty huge news right there. And Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, said that Israel will take overall security responsibility of Gaza for an indefinite period after the war. So I don't know if that means that, he's going to try to annex Gaza. It's very possible he may try to do that. And Biden was notified of a Chinese plan to build a military base in Oman. This is being reported by Bloomberg. And now it makes sense why China has 6 warships off the coast of Oman. And they were doing drills with the Oman military recently. So it looks like China wants to have a foothold in the Middle East. And this is just right in line with Bible prophecy, guys. The Bible says that the kings of the east would come in and attack Israel from the eastern direction. Okay, the kings of the east. Who are the kings of the east? Probably China, probably North Korea. Okay, and now China's building a base in Oman. Russia already has a base in Syria that they're allowing Iran to use to supply the Iranian militias in Iraq and Syria so they can then attack Israel. So everything is just going in line with Bible prophecy. And Biden said that Gaza is Palestinian land and will remain so. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken stressed that Israel should not occupy the Gaza Strip. And Israeli media is reporting that U.S. Democrats dropped the Republican proposal for a U.S. aid package for Israel worth $14 billion. So, very interesting that Democrats would drop it. We're seeing a lot of Democrats now turning on Israel and supporting the Palestinians and Hamas, which is very, very concerning. These are elected officials here in the U.S. who are sympathizing with Hamas. Very concerning. And along the Israel Lebanon border, we're seeing the Israeli army firing artillery shells this morning into the Al Lubaneh forests on the border with Israel. And also, the Israeli Air Force carried out airstrikes in southern Lebanon between Balida and Salamiya. Okay, so things are still tense along the border between Lebanon and Israel. U.S. President Biden and Chinese leader Xi Jinping will meet in San Francisco on November 15th. That's pretty crazy, guys. That's next Wednesday. And also, this weekend, I think Friday or Saturday, the leader of Hezbollah is going to make another speech. So we'll have to see what he says. I will cover it. I will provide an analysis of it and share what I find from that with you guys. Okay. Zelensky said he is not ready for peace talks with Russia unless Moscow withdraws its troops from Ukraine. And he stressed that the United States knows that I am not ready to talk with the terrorists. And he's referring to Russia. Zelensky also said that if Russia kills us all, it will attack NATO countries and you will send your sons and daughters to fight. And we have some breaking news that Ukraine is now moving a lot of forces across the Dnieper River in the Kherson region. And this is coming from the Institute for the Study of War, who was quoting Russian sources. And the Russian sources said that a limited number of armored vehicles have been transferred to the east bank of the Kherson Oblast and are continuing larger than usual ground operations on the east bank with a light infantry grouping of roughly battalion sized. And so this is all happening near the town of Krinky, which is right across from Kherson City. Okay, so looks like Ukraine is making some small gains over there. They've managed to cross over the river and set up a bridgehead, which is huge. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but maybe what the general of Ukraine said was just a psyop, and he wants the world to think that Ukraine is weakened and they're not able to do their counteroffensive, and maybe that was just a trick to get Russia to think that, oh yeah, we defeated Ukraine and now Ukraine is going to do their counterattack. We'll have to wait and see. All right, but they are making small gains over there. Hungary is going to be blocking the EU accession negotiations with Ukraine. The Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, said this would continue until their language education requirements were met. He said the new laws have made life unbearable for Hungarians in Ukraine. We cannot accept this. And the EU has granted candidate status for Georgia, and it will be opening accession negotiations with Ukraine and Moldova. And they will also be opening accession negotiations with Bosnia once Bosnia finishes up some remaining reforms related to their constitution and the rule of law. So basically, the EU is going to start negotiating with Ukraine, Moldova, and Bosnia on joining the EU. Okay, that is huge. Okay, so these countries could be members of the EU within the next year or two. Okay, and Georgia has already received candidate status. So, this could inflame tensions in the region because Russia and Serbia will see that as a threat, and that may motivate them to take action and start a conflict in those countries to prevent those countries from joining the EU, because the EU and NATO, they have this thing where if you're a country and you have some kind of war going on in your territory, then you're not allowed to join the alliance or the EU. So this could motivate, let's say, Serbia to attack Bosnia or Russia to attack Moldova and Georgia. We'll have to wait and see. But this is huge news and very historic. And apparently, the U.S. Navy and the Japanese maritime self-defense forces are holding bilateral naval exercises in the Philippine Sea. Two U.S. Navy aircraft carriers, the USS Ronald Reagan and the USS Carl Vinson, and a Japanese helicopter carrier, the Hyuga, are involved in these exercises. So this is huge, guys. And I want to just share some flight paths with you. And last night we had a presidential doomsday plane that was flying in loops in Omaha, Nebraska, and it was doing touch and goes at Offutt Air Base. This is very, very interesting. And this is the plane that the president would go on in the event of a nuclear war. The president would go on this plane and he would be able to command the entire U.S. nuclear arsenal from the air, which is the safest place to be, believe it or not, during a nuclear war, rather than in a bunker, because Russia knows where all of our bunkers are for the most part. I mean, we have some secret ones, but they know where all of our bunkers are, and they would be able to see with satellites, where our VIPs are going and stuff like that, so they could find out the locations and then target those locations with high yield nuclear warheads. So it's actually safer for the president to be in the air in a nuclear war. And also, I want to remind you guys that Russia pulled out of the Conventional Forces Europe Treaty this week. Okay. So we have multiple treaties in the last year or last couple of years that have basically been eliminated. And the risk of an escalation in Europe is huge now. Okay, we have the Conventional Forces Europe Treaty gone. We have the New START Treaty, which is nuclear arms limitations, gone. We have the INF Treaty, Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, gone. And we also have the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, gone. Okay, so we're literally back in the 1950s or early 1960s, guys. Okay, all of the major nuclear arms and just conventional arms treaties that were signed in the last 30 years towards the end of the Cold War are gone. Okay, and what you're looking at here is the flight path of a U.S. Nuke Sniffer plane, and it flew last night from the UK up into the Russian Arctic, and it disappeared somewhere just north of the Kola Peninsula here. And so it was definitely trying to see if Russia was testing any kind of nuclear weapons here. These planes can detect traces of radiation in the atmosphere. So this is very, very interesting. And we do know that Russia and the US have been testing nuclear weapons and ICBMs like crazy over the last few weeks. Okay. The US tested a Minuteman missile last week. Russia tested a Bulava submarine launched ballistic missile, I think just like 2 days after. And then 2 months ago, the U.S. tested a Minuteman III ICBM with 3 warheads on it, 3 dummy warheads, and they're normally only supposed to have 1, which is evidence that the U.S. is up-arming its arsenal now that Putin pulled out of the New START treaty. Okay, so Russia and the U.S. are doing nuclear tests again now, and the U.S. announced 2 weeks ago that they're building a new B-61 nuclear gravity bomb version that's going to be the most powerful B-61 ever made. Okay, the most powerful B-61 has a yield of 340 kilotons, and that's the Mod 7. And they're going to make one with 360 kilotons, but it's going to have the same accuracy as the latest B-61, which is Mod 12. And that one has a low blast yield. It's only like up to 20 or 40 kilotons, which is roughly the size of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs. But it's super accurate because it has a steering system. It's a bolt-on steering kit. So when they drop the bomb, it can steer itself and guide itself to a target very accurately versus the older B-61s that we had in the 80s and 90s were just dummy bombs, literally just open the hatch and drop them or release them if they're on a fighter jet and they just fall down like a stone. So there's no accuracy at all. That's why they made the blast yield so strong, because to account for the lack of accuracy. But the new B-61 Mod 13 is going to be more powerful than the ones we deployed in the 80s and 90s, and it's going to be as accurate as the one we have in our arsenal now, which is the Mod 12. Okay, so this is very, very concerning, guys. And we've been seeing a lot of Russian military cargo planes going into Kaliningrad the last 2 weeks or so. We've been seeing heavy NATO reconnaissance over Poland and the Baltic countries. So something could pop off in the European continent, guys. Okay, Russia has nuclear weapons right next to Poland and the Baltic countries in Belarus and in Kaliningrad. And they have probably hundreds of thousands of troops. Okay, and yesterday Germany announced that they're going to be moving a heavy brigade with 5,000 troops to be permanently stationed in Lithuania. All right, so things are building up in the Baltic region, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. I'm very concerned about those countries and something happening there and war breaking out, especially as things escalate in the Middle East. All right, this could be an opportunity for Russia to try to go in and attack those countries. Here we have some more flight paths in the Baltic region. You can see one of the Russian military transport planes leaving Kaliningrad, going back to Russia. And here we have a NATO AWACS plane in northeastern Poland and a NATO rivet joint. This is a reconnaissance plane, and it flew through the Suwalki Gap and along the Baltic countries and their border with Belarus and Russia here. Okay. And here's another picture showing actually a US C-17 military transport plane going from Ramstein to Lithuania, which is very interesting. I wonder if that's part of the German brigade possibly moving stuff there. So that's the latest information that I have, guys, but make sure you're getting prepared. Things are continuing to spiral out of control in the Middle East and also in Eastern Europe, okay? So don't get distracted. Stay the course. Continue to prep. Continue to pray. I say the 3 Ps a lot: prepare, practice, persevere. Okay, but really the most important prep is your relationship with Jesus Christ. Okay, because you could have all the preps in the world, you could have a year's worth of food, and all it takes is one hurricane or tornado to wipe out your house, and all your preps are gone. Okay, so you need to have something else besides your physical preps. You need to have preps stored up in heaven. Okay, and you need to be prepared for meeting God. All right. So that's pretty much it for this one, guys. I'll keep you updated. I'll do another update later on this afternoon. Stay tuned to my channel for continuing coverage of the war in the Middle East, the war in Ukraine, and all other breaking news from around the world. Consider joining my Patreon. I post some exclusive stuff on Patreon that I can't post here. And I also post these updates first on Patreon before I post them here. So check out my Patreon, and I have some fun things planned for this channel. I'm going to continue my fictional nuclear war survival series called Dark Winter. If you haven't seen that, go and check it out. It's in my playlist section. I'll leave a link to it in the top right corner. I already completed season 1 last winter, And this winter, we're going to continue with season 2, and it's basically a fictional series. I'm the director, producer, writer, and lead character. Okay, so I'm a jack of all trades, and basically, it's about me surviving a nuclear war with Russia. Okay, and the aftermath. So I'm going to continue with that. But other than that, take care. God bless, and don't forget the 3 P's: prepare, practice, and persevere.